I don't know about you, but I feel like OneUI is one of, if not the best way to experience Android right now, mainly because M3E isn't final yet. But the software is incredibly complete, it's made with purpose, and the updates are timely, except for the last one. That was a complete fumble. Actually, that's what I want to talk about today, because I truly believe that straight out of the gate, Samsung has tripped itself up, and that could have a great impact on 2025 and 2026 software releases. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and there's been a lot of discussion about software recently. I only made a video the other day about iOS 26, Android 16 M3E and OneUI 8. My friend and colleague Alex has made great content on Windows Aero, which are great watches, so you should definitely go and check those out, especially in relation to iOS 26. And it feels like we've had software updates coming out of all orifices right now. But OneUI 8 feels a little bit underwhelming, and to understand the context behind that, we need to take a look into the history of Samsung software, because it's kind of crazy. By the way guys, we're really trying to hit 500,000 subs, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that button, really help us out. Thank you very much. It was only around 10 years ago that having your smartphone run Samsung software was actually a negative. It was the butt of the joke. And that's where the idea of Android being slow, laggy, a bloated mess really came from. And there are still people who to this day believe that and will not be prized away from their iPhones as a consequence. TouchWiz would often be late to software updates, though in fairness you barely received any in the first place, and often Samsung's great hardware was difficult to recommend due to the overly clunky UI that ran on it. Samsung Experience rolled out to refine things, and that went on to become OneUI with a much sleeker and snappier interface that mirrored Samsung's premium hardware. That then went through several iterations until we got OneUI 6, and OneUI 7 promised to be quite disruptive with heaps of changes that would meaningfully change the way that you used your phone. For the first time in a while, there was a swish new notification tray that took inspiration from other systems with a new split interface, segmenting a side for notifications and another side for quick settings, a feature that not everyone loved, but that shook up what we were used to on Samsung. There was now an option for a scrollable app drawer, where the norm had been pages of apps for years gone by on Samsung devices, with other UIs from manufacturers using a scrollable interface. Many were thankful that this was just an option on Samsung and they weren't forced to the change, but it was again disruptive. And all of that pales in comparison to the Now bar, a dynamic panel that shows real-time information and moves depending on what screen you're currently on and what information you're wanting to show. It can be interacted with, and it adds a layer of multitasking power that sort of resembles Apple's Dynamic Island, a feature that we've seen copied all over the place, including OnePlus's hilariously very similar adaptation. So loads of important and impactful changes. A great update, right? Well, what would have been a transformative update didn't only come too early, but it wasn't exactly a smooth rollout. There were delays to the software coming to the S24 series, phones that were still at this point very expensive and pretty new in the grand scheme of things. They were still being sold by some carrier stores and for a pretty penny too, and they were just not getting the software update on time. There was a feeling that Samsung recently boasting all of these upcoming scheduled software upgrades for its phones, but this one in particular failing, could be a sign of false promises. Was it a callback to the incompetence, the worry of TouchWiz, or was it just a blip? Because now OneUI 8 is here, at least in beta form, and even though this software isn't fully baked yet, it feels more refined than OneUI 7, certainly nowhere near as impactful, as there have been, well, barely any changes to be totally honest. But is this update too little too late, or just poorly timed? Because the biggest change with OneUI 8 is the more flexible split screen that lets you push apps up and down the page a bit more. To be totally honest, beyond that, it's all marginal gains. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, but had those big changes come to OneUI 8 instead of OneUI 7, it would have kept Samsung software far more relevant in the bigger discussion around iOS 26 and M3E that we're talking about right now, both of which are clearly much larger changes and will bring more to the table than OneUI 8 will versus its predecessor. OneUI 8 can still be great, by the way. I'm not denying that this software looks and feels brilliant. I know the Now bar is divisive, but I'm kind of a fan of it. And though I wasn't totally sold on the split shade, I have grown to quite like that, and well, I've had to become used to it on other UIs as well. I mentioned at the start of this video that OneUI is one of the best ways to experience Android, and this doesn't change that. The delay to OneUI 7 has nibbled away at a little bit of confidence in Samsung, but there's plenty of time for the company to make amends, given the sheer length of promised updates that it has given to its phones. So only time will tell if this really was just a small blip of a delay, or it's a sign of things to come. There are a couple of reasons why this is a bit of a concern, but with Samsung's hardware not really having moved massively in the last few years, and with the rumours that next year's device is going to be much of the same, it leans on the software to really do the heavy lifting. And if OneUI isn't firing on all cylinders, well, it really doesn't leave much left. Perhaps the biggest reason I feel like this is a fumble though is the timing. With M3e and iOS 26 having made those drastic changes, it would have been ideal for Samsung to do the same this year. Instead, OneUI 8 feels more like a consolation update. Sure, an improvement that patches over some of the problems that we had with the previous software, but not really much to stand out in a clearly very competitive time frame in mobile software right now. There is still time for Samsung to make changes. The competition doesn't look to actually be rolling anything out until the latter stages of 2025, so there's room for OneUI 8.5 that does more, or perhaps they have time to just add more to OneUI 8. Perhaps there's a new AI feature we haven't thought of yet. Let's not count Samsung out. It's one of the biggest global tech powerhouses in the world. Samsung fumbled OneUI in the first half of this year, and given its hardware of late really hasn't been much to speak of, there's a clear disconnect. The past couple of foldables haven't been particularly huge jumps, and the S25 series really just feels like a S24 series with some slight changes to the Ultra model, really not that much on the base models. And the Edge, whilst cool for a small subset of Samsung's consumer base, that's a tongue twister, was hardly a revelation. Almost nailed it. Hardly a revelation. I hope we start to see more innovation and movement from Samsung Mobile going into next year with the S26 series and OneUI 9 in particular, because if not, it looks like there won't be many reasons to really upgrade from Samsung phones of the last 2 to 3 years. With the competition heating up, this was really Samsung's moment. I want to give a special shout out to my colleague Stephen Radokia because he was a big inspiration behind this video. You should totally check out his wonderful articles on androidpolice.com. Are you a big fan of OneUI? Do you think this could be a little return to the scary past of TouchWiz, or do you think it was just a blip and that we'll just move on? It, in the grand scheme of things, isn't a massive deal. Because however you slice it, it seems like there was an opportunity to really kick things up into another gear. Like it went lights out and away we go, Google and Apple fired off, and then Samsung was just there spinning its wheels trying to get off the line. Or is all of this discussion broadly academic and we'll just move on? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section what you think of OneUI 7 and OneUI 8, maybe even OneUI 9 going into the future. Whilst you're down there, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe to never miss another upload. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Ryan Thomas and I will catch you later. Cheers.